I knew we was gonna come back right there, man, because there's so much they gotta do. They gotta get power everywhere.
Okay. So we're doing continuing with the flow of food and going to talk about the first couple of steps. Purchasing and receiving the food. Okay, so we've talked about before purchasing food from approved reputable suppliers. These suppliers, they've been inspected. They meet all the laws that are written, whether they're local laws, state laws, or federal laws. They should be able to provide you with an inspection report. And that includes their procedures for receiving and storage, how they handle processing, if they do processing on site, how they handle their shipping, cleaning and sanitizing, personal hygiene, all the things that we would have to do in a restaurant. What kind of a training program do they have for their staff? And then they have to have a recall program in place in case they find that any of their food goes out is contaminated. And then a HACCP program or other food safety system. And we'll learn about the food safety systems toward the end of the class. Okay, receiving guidelines. You want the food delivered at a time that the staff can inspect it. So you don't want it to be delivered during your lunch hour or your dinner hour, because everybody's busy getting food ready to go out into the dining room. So usually early in the morning is when we like to take deliveries. You want specific staff responsible for receiving. They have to be trained to follow the food safety procedures. And they should have the responsibility to accept, reject, or and sign for the deliveries. And then you have to supply them with the proper tools. And so you plan ahead for shipments. So it depends on the size of the restaurant. Some places are very small. They'll have fewer deliveries. So they'll probably have like a day that a truck comes in and brings a lot of their product in. But in a larger operation, like when I worked at Beau Rivage, big 1,700 room hotel casino, they had 8 truck delivery days. The trucks were delivering every day. They had a big warehouse, probably the size of this building. It was like 3 stories high. So they had lots of deliveries coming in. They stored a lot of product in their kitchens. Or not in the kitchens, but in the warehouse. You want to inspect deliveries immediately. So you're going to check them as they're being delivered so you can tell right away if you got everything you were supposed to get, the right quality, whether or not you're going to accept it. So some tools that we need to receive food. We need to have thermometer, is on the left-hand side. That's a thermocouple. And then on the right-hand side, we have a scale. so that we can weigh things and make sure we're getting the weight that we ordered and that we're paying for. And then this next thing is, I have it labeled CJFCI food purchase order. So we ordered this set of ingredients. This is what we should be getting delivered. We need our paperwork. It can't depend just on what the driver brings. Because they may have accidentally added something on or deleted something or typed in, 5 pounds of shrimp instead of 50 pounds of shrimp. It does, it happens a lot.
Like they brought, the man had his truck, he didn't check back the truck. So when the truck came, they didn't have nothing in it. He gave the order to someone else. Everything.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that can happen. And it's,
Cause all they know is that they got stuff in the truck.
right,
They just, and if you having a pallet with people name on it. Yeah.
right.
Take it off.
Okay, so, and when you're receiving things, you have an inspection process. So the first thing that you do is look inside the delivery truck. You want to make sure that it's clean, that there's no evidence of pests or mold, anything like that growing in the back of the delivery truck. Then inspect the food items. We count the quantities, make sure we got the right number of cases or cans or bags, and do some spot checks on the weights. You're not going to have time to weigh every single thing that comes in. Check for damage, repackaging, and mishandling. Take sample temperatures of all TCS food, all the dairy products, egg products, soy, meats, fish. Inspect and store each delivery before accepting another one. Okay, there's something called a key drop delivery. This is where you give your supplier a key to your operation so they can come in overnight when none of your employees are there, and they will deliver the food to your area. In order to do this, the staff that opens up in the morning, first thing they have to do is go check the deliveries. They must meet the following criteria, of course, from an approved source. They have to be placed in the correct storage location to maintain the required temperatures. So TCS food has to go into the cooler, frozen food has to go into the freezer. And you would probably want to have individual racks. Okay, we're going to put key drop deliveries on this rack in the freezer and then on this rack in the cooler. They have to be protected from contamination in storage. They also have to come in not contaminated and presented honestly. So no type of false colored wraps that make them look a different color. Nothing, they're kind of like fish fillets that are labeled one type of fish, but they're really something else. Okay, so this comes from the FDA food code. For food to be honestly presented, it has to be offered in such a way that it does not mislead or misinform the consumer. Food or color additives, overwraps, special lighting may not be used to misrepresent the true appearance, color, or quality of the food. So sometimes, like in the grocery store, you ever buy ground meat or steaks, sometimes the tops look beautiful, red and juicy, and then you turn over and the bottom is gray or brown. So we can't do that. We can't accept those kind of things in a restaurant. Whenever it does come to rejecting items, you want to have a separate area that's going to put the items that are rejects. have to tell the delivery person what's wrong. You could have ordered porterhouse steaks and they delivered ribeyes. Okay, so it's the wrong item. The fish could be stink and old, and that'd be another reason to refuse an item. You want to make sure that you get a signed adjustment from the driver before you give that rejected item back to the delivery person. Typically, that's written on the invoice. They'll either cross it out or say not received, wrong item, some type of a note. So then, if there's a recall, you have to identify if you have any recalled items in your inventory. So they typically give you a lot number and a date that it was prepared, so that you can check on, especially canned items, what lot it was, and if you have that product. You want to take that item out of your inventory, store it separately from your regular inventory, label that item, prevent it from being placed back into inventory. The label that they use in the book usually says do not use, do not discard. And so they're going to have to show that we have had this item. And then on top of the sign, you would go around and tell your employees, okay, we have this item that's been recalled, do not use it. And then refer to your vendor's notification or recall notice for what to do with the item. Some of them might ask you to photograph it and then discard it. Some of them might want it shipped back to them. When you're receiving, you've got to check temperatures. When you're checking temperature of meat, poultry, and fish, you want to put the stem of the probe into the thickest part of the food, because that's going to be the last part to get cool. If it were time temperature abused, it's easy for them to throw ice over the chicken and the surface will be nice and cold, but the inside will still be warm. If you have reduced oxygen packaged food or modified atmospheric packaging, vacuum packed sous vide food, insert the thermometer stem between two of the packages. If you have two packages, you want to avoid jamming a thermometer stem through the plastic. Some things, like you can get milk in big plastic bags. You can just wrap the bag around the thermometer. You can also get liquid eggs that same way too. Other packaged food, this looks like it could be sour cream or cottage cheese. Open the package and insert the thermometer stem or probe into the food. So what temperatures are we looking for? For cold TCS food, most of it comes in at 41 degrees or lower. And then we have some exceptions to that. So if we have live shellfish, whether they're oysters, mussels, clams, scallops, they can be received at an air temperature of 45 degrees and an internal temperature no greater than 50 degrees. So those can come in a little bit warmer, but once it's received, they have to be cooled to 41 degrees or lower within 4 hours. Same thing with shucked shellfish. You get a container of scallops. They can be up to 45 degrees, but you have to cool them down to 41 within 4 hours. Milk can also be received as high as 41 degrees or 45 degrees. Same thing with shell eggs. They can be received at an air temperature of 45 degrees or lower. But both of those things you need to get down below 41 within 4 hours. If you are receiving hot TCS food, keep trying to think of a reason why you would be receiving hot TCS food. It might be that you have some type of an operation where you're going to put out a buffet or something like that. You're going to have somebody's going to be selling you casseroles that are already cooked and they're hot and ready to serve. You have to check the temperature, make sure that they're not below 135. Okay, frozen food should be received frozen solid. If you get a container of ice cream and you push on it and you can tell that it's kind of liquidy inside, then you should not receive that. Reject any type of frozen food if there's evidence of thawing and refreezing. So you might find fluids or water stains in case bottoms or on the packaging. You also might find ice crystals or frozen liquids on the food or the packaging. So this photograph on the left, you can see the clean shrimp. And then on the right side, you can see shrimp that have like a frost layer all over them. The other thing that usually happens, like the shrimp should be individual. They shouldn't be frozen together. So if they thaw out and then they refreeze, they'll often be one big clump. So you'll know that that has happened. And this came up because we do have generators on our walk-in coolers and freezers here. But I wasn't here for over 2 weeks. Nobody was checking it on a daily basis. So we had to double check, make sure there was no sign like that the whole freezer went down for a day, all the stuff thawed out, and then we froze. So when I went through freezers, I didn't find anything. We have cases that had ice on the bottom of the case. Items weren't frozen together, didn't see the crystals, didn't see any like ice on the floor where water would have dripped and then freezes again. Okay. Reject package items that come with tears or holes or punctures in the packaging. So like this can up here, it's got a pretty bad dent in it and the label is starting to come off. Severe dents in the seam or body of cans, missing labels, swollen or bulging ends, holes, leaks, rust, reduced oxygen packaged food. If there's bloating or leaking, if there's something coming out of that package, then you know that it's been used in more ways than one. If it's sat at a warm temperature and like started growing bacteria inside of it, it could actually pop one of the seals. And any type of broken carton or seal, milk has the safety little thing. If you open a gallon of milk, give those a quick double check. Reject packaged items that are dirty or discolored. The bag of flour here, clearly the bag got wet. You don't want to be accepting a new product like that. Anything with a sign of water stains, pest or pest damages, any kind of tampering or holes, missing or incorrect labels, and then you have to check the expiration dates as well. So we want to make sure we're not getting food that is past its expiration date. Okay, additional documents that we might get. Shellfish have to be received with shell stock identification tags. Those tags indicate when and where the shellfish were harvested. So this is an example of a shellfish shell stock ID tag. Has anybody ever been around somebody purchasing a sack of oysters, crawfish, anything, there's a tag on there. It has all that information about where it was harvested. When you're running a restaurant, you need to keep that shellfish in the original container. Do not remove the shell stock tag until the last shellfish is used. And then you're going to write on that tag the date that the last shellfish is used. Yes. They're going to usually come, yeah, there's different rules for the paint. We're just talking about when we first get reading. So if you something like a sack of crawfish, like we're not typically selling down crawfish every time. Probably. Like if you're doing crawfish for one, yeah, so 2 pound plate for 5 pound plate. If you're using oysters, like you might be shucking and serving them on the shell. You might be shucking them and carboning them. There's a lot of different things. And typically, it will take longer to get a sack of oysters, depending on where you're serving and what else you have on the menu. So whenever that last date is, you want to make sure that it's written on the tag, and then you want to keep that on file for 90 days after the last one was served. If they do identify a problem, they want to know who all would have possibly eaten that food. Okay, if you are serving something like sushi or sashimi, fish that is eaten raw or partially cooked, you should have documentation from the supplier that it was properly frozen before you received it. And there's a process that they have to go through. And then you keep those same documents for 90 days from the sale of the fish. Same thing for farm-raised fish. It has to have documentation that it was raised to the FDA standards, and then keep those documents for 90 days from the last sale. Products requiring inspection stamps. Meat and poultry carcass or the packaging must have a USDA or State Department of Agriculture stamp. So there's a couple examples of the stamps on the right-hand side. Stamps indicate product and processing plant to meet certain standards. Egg products. You can buy eggs in a liquid, in a 5-gallon bag. You can buy them frozen in frozen egg whites or frozen egg yolks. You can buy powdered eggs. All of those things have been processed. They need to have an inspection stamp that they were processed correctly. When we're talking about grading stamps, those are not required, they're voluntary. So grading stamp would be like beef that is prime or choice. Those are different grades of beef. And the processors or packers, whoever handling that, puts those labels on and pays for that. Okay, so assessing food quality. When you're receiving food, this is probably the most difficult part because you have to be able to identify good everything from meat, seafood, poultry to herbs. You have to be able to tell if it's cilantro or parsley or any other type of herb. So you've got to look for mold. So with this kind of cheese, if it's moldy, if it has an abnormal color, you want to reject it. Meat, fish, or poultry, if it's slimy or sticky, or if it's dry, any of those would indicate that it's older than what you should be receiving. If you have fresh fish and you touch the flesh and it leaves like an imprint of your finger or thumb, then you also want to reject it. And then any food that has an abnormal or unpleasant odor, you should also reject. So fresh fish does not smell fishy. Okay, so fresh fish, things you want to look for are bright red gills, bright shiny skin, firm flesh that springs back when it's touched, a mild ocean or seafood or seaweed smell, bright, clear, full eyes. Product should be surrounded by crushed, self-draining ice. So that means that it's in a container with ice, and then as the ice melts, it's got another container to go down into. Fish that you want to reject: dull gray gills, dull dry skin, soft flesh, a strong fishy or ammonia smell, cloudy eyes, or sunken eyes. It will look like someone actually poked it and the liquid came out of the eye. Tumors, abscesses, or cysts on the skin, you would want to reject that food. For shellfish, again, fresh smell, shells are closed and unbroken, indicating shellfish are alive. If they are fresh, they have to be received alive. Any shells that are cracked or do not close, slimy, sticky, strong fishy smell. If they're very muddy, then you would want to refuse those. Crustaceans. Okay. Mild ocean or seaweed smell, shipped alive, packed in seaweed, and kept moist. I have never received a large shipment of lobsters. When we get them here, we just get them from the grocery store. But I'll check into that. Some of the other chefs here may know. If it's a strong fishy smell, or if like it's lobster and it's dead, don't pay for that. Don't accept it. For meats, should be a bright cherry red. Your aged beefs may be a little bit darker. Vacuum packed beef, watch them appear a little bit short, purplish. Lamb should be light red. Pork should be light pink. Meat with firm white fat. Okay, so if you see brown or green beef, or lamb with brown or whitish surface covering the lean meat, pork excessively dark colored, soft, or rancid. And rancid is like fat that is spoiled. So it has a very off smell to it. Butter can be rancid if it sits out at room temperature for a long time. It should have firm flesh that springs back, no odor, packaging clean and intact. Check that the cartons are still intact, that there's no damage to them or nobody's tampered with anything. Poultry, no discoloration, firm flesh, no odor. If it's fresh poultry, it should be surrounded by crushed, self-draining ice. A lot of times places will buy in frozen poultry. Things to look for to reject: purple or green discoloration around the neck. Dark wingtips that are red are acceptable. Look for stickiness around the wings and joints. Check for abnormal, unpleasant odor. When it comes to eggs, you should be able to smell anything with eggs. The shells should be clean and unbroken. Typically, if we're looking at this picture on the left-hand side, it should be 30 to a flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 5 rows of 6 eggs in a flat. And they can come in a case of 150 or 300 eggs. Or it's 180 and 360. It's been a whole while since I've handled that many. Reject anything, like if you find eggs that are broken in the problem case, that's not good. Dirty or cracked shells, any kind of an off odor. Your dairy products, milk should have a sweetish flavor. I've never seen anybody actually open up milk and taste it to check it in. Pardon me?
I don't like this like that.
Butter should also have a sweet flavor, uniform color, firm texture. Cheese should have its typical flavor and texture, whether it's a soft cheese or a hard cheese. It shouldn't have mold unless it's a blue cheese or camembert or something like that. It already has. Yes. There are molds that are edible. Milk that has a sour, bitter, or moldy taste, has a funny odor if the expiration date is passed. Butter that is sour, bitter, or moldy tasting, uneven color, soft texture, contains foreign matter, somehow it became contaminated. Actually seen mold grow on butter. Cheese, abnormal flavor or texture, unnatural mold, unclean or broken rind. All of those are reasons to reject. The fresh produce. Temperature varies according to the product. So produce, sliced melons, lettuce, those things that are sliced already, those are TCS foods. They have to come in at 41 degrees or lower. You want to make sure that the produce that you're receiving hasn't been frozen, or that it's not like being held in a higher than room temperature. So look for evidence of mishandling or insects. So whenever you got your frozen lettuce and then pulled it out, wilting, and it has, I'm trying to think of the other ways to describe it. It just doesn't look fresh. It gets limp. And like if you see fruit like this, a lot of times you might have to look at the bottom of the case. It gets stacked in packaging to find that type of mold growing on them. Look for insects, insect eggs, egg cases, that type of thing, because those things are going to hatch in your product. That's the end of this chapter. So that's a chapter 6 on it, but it was really our chapter 5. I did send an email. This one is due Friday. Well, right, but if like anything that normally would have been due during, like the evacuation of the hurricane, I have it reopened. Chapter 6 quiz is also due Friday, because we'll lecture on chapter 6 on Friday.